the honourable members of the Judiciary, the Solicitor General, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Permanent Secretaries, CEOs, members of the private sector, members of the Fiji Police Force, members of FICAC, the DPP's office, Director of Public Prosecutions, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me much pleasure to be here this morning. I don't intend to make a very long speech or a speech that's going to take a stock take of what has happened in Fiji over the past 3 or 4 years, but rather to highlight to you some of the salient features that perhaps need to be discussed in your workshop this morning and also this afternoon. You will see from the program that the topics are all very, very practically orientated. It talks about various case studies, the manner in which cases have been brought about, some of the challenges that have been faced by the prosecutors and indeed the investigators, and of course you'll hear from the judiciary also. So it's a holistic approach to money laundering. What I would like to firstly start off by saying is that the fact that we've now had this money laundering conference held 3 years consecutively demonstrates not just a commitment of the Money Laundering Council but also of the Bainimarama government to ensuring that we have processes that are transparent, that we comply with international standards, and that we indeed want to set the platform and a foundation for an economic base, for a social base, and a political base that is held accountable. And indeed, we need to play a pivotal role in the global commitment to ensuring that money laundering does not take place, whether it's for terrorism activities, whether it is indeed, as the name suggests, laundering from criminal activities. I think some of the challenges that we have today is in respect, firstly, of the technology that's come into being. The technology that existed even 7 years ago is considered to be quite in the dark ages to what you have now. The fact that over the past couple of months you've had now the 2 mobile phone companies in Fiji where you can actually now send money from Australia and New Zealand, $500 or so, through texting itself was probably even unconceived of. It was not conceived of even 7 years ago, even let alone 3 years ago. So it has brought about, technology brings with it a lot of advantages. Technology also brings with it a lot of borders that were closed before but that are now opening up. So how we deal with that, not just as a company or a prosecuting agency or the police or indeed the judiciary, but how we deal with it as a country, as a society, is critical. So therefore, for example, in respect of this mobile banking that's commenced in Fiji, obviously there's a lot of background work that had needed to be done between the Reserve Bank of Fiji, between the phone companies, between the money exchange companies, to be able to get the system right, not just in terms of its ability to function, but its ability to adhere to our international obligations and to our laws. And that is critical. You will always find that with the advent of technology making things easier, at the same time you will find people who try and circumvent the processes that's there. So we need to always be one step ahead of them. And I think one of the critical issues in that respect is there needs to be complete collaboration between all the different agencies. There needs to be an understanding of the technology. There are some agencies in Fiji who have not necessarily caught up with the technology, who are not necessarily savvy with the terms and phrases that are being used by these companies or these individuals who may be carrying on money transfer, for example, through these new technological advances. So we need to be savvy about that. We today have before the courts a couple of interesting cases. There's one, for example, in respect of computer hacking. It's the first time that you've got such an offense being charged under the new crimes decree. The allegations are in fact quite phenomenal in terms of what has happened. Suffice to say that it is pivotal that the prosecution, the investigation of these matters are done with the utmost detail, with the utmost collaboration between all the agencies concerned. Because if it is not done so, then we will be sending out a message to to the rest of the would-be perpetrators that Fiji is in fact not ready for it. That Fiji can make all these wonderful laws, but in fact it cannot implement it. In the same way, if we, for example, have tax laws, and if there are breaches and we do not prosecute, one of the reasons why we prosecute is for the deterrence impact of it. Because everybody else will then know that if this person has done wrong, they will be punished for it. If they're punished for it, then hopefully the second and third person won't do it. So the deterrence effect, the deterrence impact is very, very critical. And I think in that respect, there are a number of challenges for you, in particular those of you who may be even working in the private sector, to be aware of the various trends that are taking place. For those in the private sector, in the banking sector in particular, to be aware as to how you need to collaborate with the police, how you need to collaborate with the prosecuting agencies. And indeed, at the next step, at the prosecution stage before the judiciary itself needs to be aware of the new technologies. They need to be aware of what are the new trends that are taking place and how indeed other jurisdictions are prosecuting such matters. What's the jurisprudence that has been developed in this area? There are a number of significant issues that need to be addressed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think what the government, the Beni Marama government, is doing for its part, you will be seeing in the next year a number of other more advances made in terms of accountability. For example, public office accountability is one area that we are looking at. These areas are all interlinked. For example, with FICAC's presence over here, we know that in a way there is a watchdog over people who are watching other people. And that is critical too, because they deal with public office abuse, public office holders who may not be in fact enforcing their duties and obligations as they should under their respective laws. And that is also critical. So you will see, in respect of what the government will be doing in the following year, is to set some further standards where we will make even more transparent processes, even more accountability in respect of public office holders. The FIU, I know over the past year or so, has in fact entered into a number of bilateral agreements with various other countries. I understand there's about 12 bilaterals that have been signed in the past year or so. And this is very good. And notwithstanding the fact that there has been some political gestures or political maneuverings behind the scenes, the fact is when it comes to money laundering, when it comes to, for example, extradition, you will find that all the jurisdictions actually collaborated with each other. And indeed, we have taken a position that irrespective of political positions, Fiji must and will always adhere to all its international obligations, and will collaborate with the global community to be able to address this issue of money laundering, which is precisely what I hope you will get out from this workshop today. And I wish you all the very best for the workshop. I'd like to once again thank the Governor of the Reserve Bank and the Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit for, together with the Money Laundering Council, in putting this workshop together. Please take the maximum out of it. Please talk to all the various individuals that are involved from the respective agencies. This is the only way we can develop these sorts of relationships to get a better outcome and to ensure that Fiji is fully compliant with all its obligations, and indeed we adhere to all our laws. Thank you very much.